This assignment was created to share the connections between the educational strategies used to make content accessible to all students through the use of multimedia presentations. Pre-teaching or pre-training and segmenting content can be used to guide and simplify students' understanding when they encounter unknown and unfamiliar concepts and skills. This presentation was created for 5th grade humanities, which is reading, writing, and social studies students. These students are on and above grade level. Their Lexile scores range from the 800s to the 1200s. The objectives. For social studies, describe the 3 branches of government and their individual powers and responsibilities, such as separation of powers and checks and balances. Speaking and listening, engage effectively in a range of collaborative discussions with diverse partners on grade 5 topics and texts, building the other's ideas and expressing their own clearly. Both of these are 5th grade objectives for Maryland State. The legislative branch is made up of Congress, which is split into the House of Representatives and the Senate. Their main responsibilities are to make the laws, declare war, and approve or reject leaders chosen by the president. The executive branch is made up of the president and vice president. Their main responsibilities are to approve and carry out the laws and meet with leaders from other countries. The judicial branch is made up of the Supreme Court. Their main responsibilities are to decide what laws mean, how they are carried out, and if they are constitutional. Now, having all 3 branches on the same slide can result in cognitive overload. Instead, the segmenting principle states that we learn better when information is segmented or broken into sections that we can view at our own pace. The information is much easier to retain when it is broken into sections or segmented. For example, presenting each branch as its own slides and pausing for questions and a brief discussion before moving on to the next branch. Also, when visuals are broken down or segmented, for example, breaking the chart apart and presenting each branch as its own visual, the viewer can retain the information and connections without experiencing essential processing overload. This aligns with the segmenting principle, which states that we learn better when information is segmented or broken into sections that we can view at our own pace. Since the modality principle states that we learn better through a combination of pictures and spoken words, you can also include pictures that correlate with the spoken words you're presenting, as demonstrated in the next slides. The legislative branch, also called Congress, is split into the House of Representatives and the Senate. Their main responsibilities are to make the laws, declare war, and approve or reject leaders chosen by the president. Here's a picture of Congress at work in the Capitol building. After each branch, I would stop and have students write down any questions that they had during the presentation. I would then use the think, pair, share method for them to share their questions. I would also formulate some of my own higher level questions to ask students. For example, what do you think would be a challenge that Congress faces? This would help me because students need to be able to understand the responsibilities of Congress in order to answer the question. So they're using the presentation and taking it a step further. The executive branch is made up of the president and vice president. Their main responsibilities are to approve and carry out the laws and meet with leaders from other countries. Here's a picture of the White House where the president works and lives. I would ask the same type of question I asked about the legislative branch for the executive branch. For example, what challenges do you think the president and vice president may face? The judicial branch is made up of the Supreme Court. Their main responsibilities are to decide what laws mean, how they are carried out, and if they are constitutional. Here's a picture of the Supreme Court building. This is where the Supreme Court works. I would stop, do the think, pair, share method, and ask a similar type of question. For example, what challenges do you think Supreme Court faces? I may have some other higher level questions prepared as well, just in case, and this would all depend on how the students' discussion went. Now, breaking these branches apart or segmenting them has helped with the understanding and helped to reduce excessive processing overload. Next is the pre-training principle, which states that we learn better when we have knowledge of the concepts being introduced when viewing multimedia presentations. Therefore, before introducing the steps of a bill becoming a law, I would pre-train my students, providing them with this background information or details before having them view a multimedia presentation will give them the foundational knowledge of the topic, and they can build on this. It will also help to avoid essential processing overload, since the students will already have prior knowledge to build on. Again, I have included visuals to go along with the spoken text based off the modality principle. First, I would have my students read A Day in the Senate. These are leveled readers, so students will be in groups reading the Lexile level that is appropriate for them. This book explains the work a senator does, including the process of making laws. This will allow the students to become familiar with key vocabulary words, such as bill, committee, House of Representatives, and veto, that will appear in the How a Bill Becomes a Law presentation. They will also begin to understand the role of a senator, which will guide them in understanding the process of a bill becoming a law. Next, I would show my students the multimedia presentation as follows of how a bill becomes a law. First, someone comes up with an idea for a law, and a senator or representative writes it into a bill. Second, a committee reviews the bill to decide if it should move on to Congress to vote on it becoming a law. Third, the House and the Senate vote on the bill. In order for it to pass, more than half of Congress needs to agree. And remember, Congress is the House of Representatives and the Senate. Next, the bill goes to the President. If he approves the bill, it becomes a law. But if the President vetoes the bill, it goes back to Congress where they can vote again. If more than 2/3 of Congress vote to pass the bill, it will still become a law. The veto is overridden. If not, the bill will not become a law. As a culminating activity, I would have my students create their own comic strip after viewing this presentation, depicting the process of a bill becoming a law. This activity states that the student's principal wants to pass a law limiting class sizes to 20, and they need to help her understand the process the bill will take. They need to be sure to include information about their Senator Barbara Mikulski as well. Here are 2 examples of students' final copies. This culminating activity will allow me to make sure that my students did learn the information that I wanted them to learn from my multimedia presentation. Here are my works cited for the principles or educational strategies, and my works cited for the pictures and information relating to the 3 branches